All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. I've been going over the Joyce Farrell Microsoft Visual C Sharp 2015 and Introduction to Object-Oriented Programming text. I'm up to Chapter 3, and I'm going to do this chapter a little differently. All right? Rather than, this is what we want to do in here. We want to create a form using the Visual Studio IDE or Integrated Development Environment. We want to use the toolbox to add a button to the form. We want to add labels and text boxes. We want to put names onto our forms and controls. We want to correct any errors we make. And then we want to decide whether or not we want to use an IDE and have a GUI, graphical user interface program, or whether we'd rather have a console app. So I'm going to attempt to write both. And this is going to be interesting because I'm literally doing this. Been a while since I've written a lot of C Sharp, but we're going to just go with it anyway. All right, so File. I want to find my Visual Studio 2015. Which will be under the V's, I guess. Visual Studio 2015. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to write two iterations, the same two of a calculator, so you can see how this stuff works. So I'm going to do a File, New, Project. It's a Windows Form application, and we'll call this one Calculator GUI. Calculator GUI. Okay? Hopefully you won't hear a lot of squeaking in here. The person I'm doing this in my apartment, and whoever is above me is just making a lot of noise tonight. All right. So I'm going to build my GUI right now. I'm going to make my form a little bit bigger. First thing I want to do is I don't like forms that are named Form 1. So I'm going to call this Form, just what it is, Form Calculator GUI. Now that's the program name for my form. It's not what shows up here. That's the text. So somewhere up here, in here also is the text for the form, and I'm going to find that. And I'm going to change that, there it is under text, to GUI C Sharp Calculator. And now notice that you said it hasn't changed. As soon as I hit enter, now it's changed. And I couldn't spell calculator correctly, evidently. Looks a little better. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to put in a couple labels. Okay? Don't worry about what they are, etc. We're going to look at all this stuff in just a minute. I'm going to put another label here. And another label here. All right, so I've got three labels in here right now. Over, I like these, like them to be lined up pretty well. That's getting there. All right, now I'm going to put in three text boxes. Text box. There's one. Now notice I'm just grabbing those tools and dragging them out here. So I'm holding down on the left mouse button. Boom. All right. This is probably a little wider than I need it to be, so that's not real bad right now. This looks like it's not perfectly set up, but it's not bad. And I'm going to add 6 buttons. Two, three, and now that I think of it, there really should be 7, but for now we'll just keep it at 6. That's fine. 4. I'll move these over a little bit. 5, 6. We're going to put one master button, for lack of better words, down at the bottom also. Now, is this a nice looking interface? Don't worry about it. We could change it any way we wanted to change it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click on a blank spot in my form, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to find background color, because I don't like the color that it is right now. So I'm going to click again, and I'm going to choose custom. And it might not be the best looking color in the world, but there we go. At least it stands out a lot more right now. Okay? All right. Up a little in that. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want this to say enter number 1, enter number 2, and answer. Okay, so this label, in fact, all three of these labels I want to be bigger, so I'm going to highlight them. I'm holding down on my left mouse button, or on the mouse, I should say. I'm holding down on the mouse, and now I'm dragging. This is called lassoing, because now I've highlighted all of them. And let's see. Well, I don't know if the sizing is set up in here exactly the way I thought it was. So let me click over here. I thought there was an auto set property in here. Accessibility, appearance. There it is. Auto ellipse. Is that it? Auto ellipsis? I don't remember if that's it or not. Auto size, that's what I want. So let me draw this around there, and I'm going to go down to where it says auto size, which I just saw, and now there it is. And I'm going to change it from true to false, which means they can be any size they want. Notice how they've changed? All right, and I'm going to change the text in each one of these. So the first one is going to say, now I've got to find the text. First one will say enter number 1, and you can see how it's changed. Second one will say enter number 2, and the last one will say answer. All right, now a couple things about this. First of all, it's not very big. Not very centered, etc. So let's change some of that. So I'm highlighting all of them again. I drew that invisible lasso around them. I want to find, there should be a property in here that's called font. There it is. So let's change this. Notice that the size is 8.25. Let's make the size, try 12. So you can see now how much bigger it is. All right, don't worry. You say, well, what happened to the rest of it? We'll get it back in just a second. All right, in fact, just to show you, I'm going to take this, move this over just a tad. So I can take this and drag these over here. There we go. All right, it's looking a little better already. Not a lot, but a little bit. Okay, where it says bold, I'm going to change that to true. Oops. Oh, that was interesting. Bold is false. I want it to be true. All right, looking better. All right, and let's see. I could change the color of the text, but it's okay the way it is in black. It's fine. Image align? No, is it? Let's make it right aligned. Nope, that's not that. That's not an image, so that's not going to do anything. Forget that. Text align. We want that to be right there. So notice now how everything was pushed over and everything is lined up. Again, this is by no means beautiful, but it's going to be functional, and that's what I'm looking for here. All right. Doesn't look too bad. So the next thing I want to do is, these are text boxes. This is where we'll enter information, and this is where we'll display information. So in this first one, I'm going to change the name of it, which right now I believe is text box 1, which is kind of a silly name. I'm going to change its name to text box number 1. The second one will be text box number 2. And the last one will be text box answer. The other thing is, for that text, for the answer, I don't want to be able to change it. Once I press a button to add, subtract, or whatever, I don't want to be able to change it. So I'm going to set this, there should be a property in here that's called read only. And I want to set that to true. So let's see. Oh, all right, we'll try locked instead. No, that's if you can resize the control. No, we don't care about that one right now. Read only, there it is. So we'll set that equal to true. And notice when we do, it turns kind of gray. I don't really like that. So I can go back to the color again, and I can change the background color just like I did before. And we'll make this a light yellow. There we go. All right, so we've renamed this to text box number 1, text box number 2, and text box answer. Now, if we want to, we can also rename our labels. Some people think that's a waste of time, some people don't. But I can call this again label number 1. You typically only rename things that you're going to associate with code, and you probably wouldn't put any code on these. So it really wouldn't matter that much one way or the other. So label number 2 and label answer. All right, so we now have these 6 controls named. Okay, all right, I don't like the way this looks, so I'm going to change this around a little bit here. And it doesn't matter that which buttons we use in 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. That really and truly does not matter. But I'll put this one down on the bottom here. All right, this first one is going to hold the code that when it'll take what's in here and what's in here and add them together and put the result in here. So that's going to be our add button. So we will name that button add. And we could put the word add there. That would be just fine if we wanted to do that. But not like this is going to exactly look like a calculator. But we'll change it to just a plus sign. Okay? This will be, we'll put it right here. So this one will be button subtract. And we will change, whoops, that's the text, sorry. We want that to be the name of the button. So that's going to have just a minus sign. And it will be named button subtract. All right, the next one will be, the name will be button multiply. And its text will be an asterisk. The next one will be our subtract, multiply, divide, modulo. Okay. Trying to figure out aesthetically how this is going to look the best. For now, I'm going to move that down here. All right, and I'm going to leave, there's my plus and minus right there. Oops. There's my plus and minus right there. All right, there's my multiply. This will be my divide. So that's going to have a slash. And its name will be button divide. This will be my modulo. And the modulo, I believe in this language, is a percent sign. And what I'll do too is I'll make sure I make all of this text and these projects available. I'll put them out there also where people can get to them. All right, so I've now got all of my mathematical symbols in here. So there's only 2 more things that I want to be able to do here. And that is when I click here, I want everything to clear. And when I click here, I want the program to exit. So this one will be called clear, and its name will actually be button clear, and this last one, its name will be button exit, and its text will be exit. All right, so right now my interface is finished. Now, what I like to do then is I don't want to be able to move this stuff or have this stuff accidentally move around where it could start looking kind of crummy. So I'm going to, again, hold down on the left mouse button and I'm going to lasso everything I've got there. See how it's all highlighted? I'm going to go down to a property I showed you before that's called locked, and I'm going to set it to true. There. Now, I can't move any of these. My interface is set. Okay? All right. So again, I want this to be a number, and if I click here, I'll add them, click here, I'll subtract, click here, I'll multiply, here, divide, here, modulo, here, we'll clear these, and here, we'll exit the program. Okay? I want to make sure when the program starts that my mouse is right there. So I'm going to go down to View, and I'm going to go and click where it says Tab Order. All right? And I'm going to set my tab order, which means that this one is going to be set to 0. If it'll let me. Why it's doing that. 0. That one will be 1. That'll be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That's good. I don't care about these because I'm not going to tab to any of my labels, and I don't want to be able to do anything with this either. So that's good. All right. So time to put some code in here. Now I'm going to make this real simple, and I'm not going to do a lot of error checking. Error checking is something we'll learn later. So I'm going to double click right here. When I can either right mouse click on my button and click View Code, okay, or I could just have double clicked on that button. I like to double click on the button because notice when I double click on the button, now let me go back to View and Tab Order again and remove all that. So those are the numbers that are going. I'm going to double click on this. So now it says there's my add routine. Okay. All right, so what I want to do again is I want to add what's in here to what's in here and put the result here. All right, now a couple things that I have to do first. First of all, at the top of my program, before I put any of this other stuff in here, I'm going to go and right at the very top, I'm going to put some variables in here. I'm going to say double number 1, and I'm just going to set that equal to 0. Double number 2, and I'm going to set that equal to 0. Oh, I got to respell double, and double answer, which I'm also going to set equal to 0. All right, so that's what I'm starting with here. All right, let's put some comments in here so it looks a little nicer. First number input. Second number input. Result of number 1, operation number 2. And operation means I'm either going to add, subtract, multiply, divide, etc. All right. So that's okay. All right. Now, there's nothing wrong with what I did here in saying number 1 is 0 and number 2 is 0, etc. That's totally fine to do that. It is. There's absolutely not a problem. Okay? But let's see. What I want to do is I want to say number 1 equals, let's see, I apologize here. Just want to give you the right syntax, so. Okay. So I'm going to say here, convert dot to double And what do I want to convert? Well, I want to convert text box number 1 dot text. What that is saying in English is take whatever is in that first text box right there and convert it to a number, and put that number that you converted to into number 1. And then I'm going to do the same thing with number 2. Now there's going to be a lot of duplicative code here, and that's good because it'll show us later how we can write this in a much better way. All right, so I'm going to say our answer, well, let's just say this, answer is equal to number 1 plus number 2. All right, and then our answer, our text box answer dot text equals answer dot toString. So I'm going to convert it back into a string again. Okay? So it's doing kind of what you think it would do. It's saying whatever we put in here, convert it to a number. Whatever we put in here, convert it to a number. Add those two together and put the result right there. All right? Now the good news is we've already got this one written basically, because all we have to do is change that add to a subtract. All right, so again, minus, that's the only thing we have to change. So if you say, wow, it looks like you're duplicating a lot of code, we'll talk about that, and what we'll get to in later chapters is how to make sure that doesn't happen. All right, so here's our multiply. So again, the only thing we have to change is that to a multiply. There's our divide. Again, change that to a divide. And come back one more. Oops. One more here. Whoops, I don't want to do it like that. Hold on. And let's do our modulo. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. I would strongly suggest that you do either a file, save all, or you click the double disk icon, or you do a Control-Shift-S. When you are working with this stuff, there are some files that you don't have control over that the system controls, and you want to make sure all of them are saved. Now, I'm going to run the program, and there's different ways I can do it. The easiest way is to click this big green arrow that says Start. Now, all of it won't work yet because I didn't put all the code in yet, but let's put in here 17 and 3. Okay? There's 17 plus 3. There's 17 minus 3. There's 17 times 3. There's 17 divided by 3. Kind of ugly, but that's okay. And there's 17 modulo 3. They all work. The clear, when we click that, what we want is we want this to disappear, this to disappear, this to disappear, and we want our cursor to go back onto this first field. So let's write that one next. Okay? Always make sure that you rename things like I've done them before you write your code. All right, we'll talk about that in class. But the first thing I want to do is I want to take the text box number 1 dot text, and I'm going to set that equal to double quote to the empty string. I'm going to clear it. Then I'm going to do the same thing with text box number 2 equal double quote, and finally text box answer again is equal to double quote. And then finally I want to go back to text box number 1 dot think it's just dot focus. All right, let's see if that works. So I'm again going to do a file, save all. I'm going to run my program again. We can put in different numbers, it doesn't matter. 33 and 8. Plus, minus, multiply, divide, modulo, clear. They all cleared, and there's my cursor. So that works. So the only thing left to do is this exit that's right here. And I believe, I know I could be wrong here, but we're going to try this. Again, I'm doing this kind of off the top of my head. So if I bring that up, I'm going to try to say here, application dot exit. And I think that that's all I have to do here. We're going to try it. So let's run it one more time. You don't have to ever even put anything in there. Let's just click exit. And it exited. That's good. So I think I'm done. So what have we done in here? Okay. We started first by building our form. It's not the prettiest form, but as you saw, it's a functional form. Again, I could go back and change the color of the background, of the text. I showed you how to change the font type. I showed you, or the font style. I showed you how to make it bigger. I showed you how to bold it. All right. I showed you how to come in here and take a read-only field and change its background color. We changed the background color of the form. We changed the text that we had up here for our form. We changed the name of our form. We changed and renamed all of our controls. So it was the name of the control followed by whatever it is. So label number 1, label number 2, label answer, text box number 1, text box number 2, text box answer. I like to give my labels and my text boxes the same name, except one is prefaced with label and the other one is prefaced with text box. Then we had our button add, button subtract, button multiply, button divide, button modulo, button clear, and button exit. And we put in our variables that we're going to hold what we put into the first text, what we put into the second text, and what we put in for the answer. All right. This initialized components, don't worry about it for right now, okay? But we're doing the same thing here every time. The only thing that's different between our routines here is we're either adding, or we're subtracting, or we're multiplying, or we're dividing, or we're doing a modulo. And if you said, hey Jeff, yeah, but these two lines are the same every time, couldn't you just write them once? That's what we'll get to when we talk about the chapter on functions. All right. Then we came down here, and for our clear button, we just took our 3 text boxes and set them all to the empty string, and we set the focus or put the cursor in the first one. And for exiting, we just exited. Now, I didn't put much documentation in here at all. All right, so we could come in here and say routine called when user clicks the plus button. Writing very generic comments here. Very simple comments. So when they click plus, when they click minus, when they click, oops, I guess I didn't put them both in there. When they click multiply, when they click divide, when they click modulo, when they click the clear button, finally when they click the exit button. Again, I could put even more comments in there than that. It's not a long program right now, it's 85 lines. All right, so I'm going to jump back and look at some of the what's in there as far as the PowerPoints, and then I'm going to come back and very, very quickly try to rewrite this as a non-GUI or a console app. All right, so with what we've just done here, let's take a look and see how much of this we've covered. All right, the interface is the environment the user sees, so it was our form. Forms are our GUI. To create a form, I showed you that. We selected new project, we chose Windows Form application, gave it a name, and clicked OK. So you saw all this stuff. Now, I should mention this because this is an important, very, very important thing. That when you first come in here, and I'm just going to start up a new session of Visual Studio. You'll see why in just a second, hopefully. But when you come in here and you do a file and you do a new project, yours isn't going to default to your desktop like mine does. All right, you're going to have to click the browse button here, and you're going to have to choose your desktop. So please make sure to do that. Okay, all right. All right, so I set the project name. I just mentioned the location to you. All right, and click the OK button. This is all stuff that'll make a lot more sense, I really and truly believe, the more you work with it. All right, so here's some of the things that are on here. Now, some of these I just breezed through. All right, if I click on here, this is going to become available. That's where our toolbox was. That's where those buttons were, and the labels that I put in here, and the text boxes, etc. If I had any errors, now I didn't have any, but if I had errors, they would have appeared down here. So again, I showed you this in an earlier chapter, but if I come back in here and I go down to where it says number 1 plus number 2, and I leave out the semicolon at the end and save and run it again, it says I have errors. Whenever you get this, just click no, because then there's my error, so I can double click on it and it's showing me right where it is. All right. Okay. The name of the application shows in 3 places: the title bar, the Solution Explorer, and the Properties window. There's the title bar. This is your Solution Explorer right here. And this is your Properties window down below it. All right, the main menu lies horizontally across the top. So here's your main menu right here. The Toolbox tab provides a list of controls you can drag onto the form. That's here. Let's look at it where you can see it a little bit better. Okay, you don't see them when you're in code mode here, but you see them when you're in design mode. So there's your toolbox right there. The Form Designer appears in the center of the screen. The Solution Explorer basically shows you all the different files that you have involved with your project. The Properties window allows you to configure. You saw that's where I went in and reset colors and fonts, etc. And I just showed you the error list window. All right. Now there's a lot of text here, and I don't want to confuse you. Let's just talk about what probably is the most important thing to you right now. This file right here that you see, this file. All right, that is kind of a culmination of all 3 of these right here. The form1.cs, okay? And there's the actual code, and you notice you also got a program.cs file. Let's not worry about that for now. Let's more worry about this stuff that's right here, because it holds both your GUI and your code. All right? Again, I'm trying to give you what I think at least is the most important stuff right now. All right. In the Properties window, you can change appearance and size. You saw how I dragged the form and made it bigger. The form class itself has around 100 different properties. They appear in alphabetic order except for the name property. Here are some of the properties you can change for a form. Most controls have all of these properties. And this is shown in table 3.1 that's on page 106 in your book. All right, the .cs file contains the automatically generated main method, and form1.cs has got other automatically generated code. So notice, it's kind of an important thing. If you look in here, I'm going to do a Control F to search, and I'm going to type in main. Okay? And it's not going to find it. Main is not in there. I believe that main is in here. There it is. That's basically telling it to run the program. That's created for us automatically when we do a GUI like this. Okay? All right. When you create a Windows Form project, as it says, Visual C# adds the form to the project and calls it Form1. You already saw that. And I went in and I changed the name of that to Form Calculator GUI. All right, when you open the IDE, the left border displays the toolbox. You saw that. You saw how to drag the controls. There's different ways. I showed you what I consider to be the easiest way. You can double click on a control and it'll put it in a kind of a standard location on the form, usually in the upper left-hand corner. You can grab a control that you have and do a Control C and a Control V to copy it. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with these. All right. Common controls are the ones you're going to use almost exclusively in here. We looked at the label, the button, and the text box. There's other ones that we'll get to in later chapters. As mentioned here, a button is a clickable object. This is a kind of a learning moment here where we can tell you that like many programming languages, C# is what's referred to as an event-driven programming language. So it sits there and waits for things to happen. Those things are events. All right? And it responds to those events in whatever way you tell it to respond to those events. All right? Okay. Here's the button, and it shows, you can drag it around, and it shows how you can go into the properties window and change things and change the name, etc. I showed you all that stuff. Here are some of the things, if you wanted to, you could change. If we didn't want our button to be gray, we could make it a different color. We could put a different color text on it. We could change the font style on the button. I'm not concerned with that right now. The best way for you to learn that is to just create a simple little dummy project on your own and play with it. Buttons don't do anything on their own. You can click them, but until you put some code behind them, they're not going to do very much. So when you double click it, if you don't change the name, it'll say private void button 1 click. Well, let's take a look at our buttons. You already saw these, but we'll look at them again. So our button subtract, since we changed the name, I called it button subtract. It's button subtract underscore click. So it's responding to a click event for the button. It says object sender. That's who clicked it. It's going to be the programmer. This is event args, so it's arguments. That doesn't matter for a button, but if you're working with a mouse and maybe you're writing a game, that args might have your X and Y coordinates as you're trying to move a spaceship around on the screen or something like that. All right? Okay, you can put, as it says, anything you want in the click methods. We already talked a little bit about events. Again, generated to cause the program to perform a task. Click event is an example of an event. We talked about what labels were. Labels are just basically, they're kind of like headings. All right. And this is the example that they use in the chapter where they put in and have you put in there, enter a number. And this is from page 113 on the book. And then they come in and they put in a text box. I showed you that a text box that we used for both input and output, but our one that was solely used for output, which was the answer, we set its, remember, we set its read-only property to true, which meant we couldn't change the value, because if I put in 33 for number 1 and 8 for number 2 and I press 1, the answer is 41. I shouldn't be able to change that answer because I don't like it. All right? So this is what they're doing in the book. Again, my example was a little bit more complex than the example that was shown in the book. I showed you the convert to int, so I used the right one, luckily. The focus, I showed you that. We used the focus event to make sure that when we clicked our clear button, that the focus or the cursor was in the first box. All right, I also showed you tab border. Okay. Tab order begins with 0, so that if you want something to make sure that it's got the tab order when the program starts, you set that to 0. All right. If we wanted to, if we were working in here with, we're not, but if we were working with money in here, I could have done some formatting, and I could have done the toString with a C on it for currency, and there's other ones. We'll get into those in later chapters. Okay, I showed you how to change the label's font. Okay, so we changed that. I showed you how to name your controls. If you forget and put your code in and want to rename them afterwards, there is a code refactoring feature that is mentioned in the book, and it's on page 118 to 119. Now, I'm not going to go through that because my philosophy is you should always create your interface, name your controls, then start adding your code. And if you do that, you never have to worry about refactoring. So that they go through that in here. All right, correcting errors. You already saw an error that I put in there and how to fix it. Again, when you get this message, I always say no. It makes no sense to go back and have it say yes. To me, it doesn't. Typically, in your error window, it'll show a message. The message will usually do a pretty good job of explaining to you what the problem is. All right? All right. Deleting an unwanted event handler method. I'm on page 121 in the chapter. So what the author says here is occasionally you'll double click something you didn't mean to double click when you're in your design mode, and it'll open up a code window for it. If that happens, it says go to the properties window, click on the events button, select the button you want to eliminate, and delete the method name. The easiest way to do that is, to me, is if that confused you, imagine this. Okay, so here's our interface. So let's say that I double clicked on this right here. And notice it opened that up, and I don't really want that to be opened. All right, because I don't want to use that. And that's what they're talking about in here. Okay. So what the author says is if you do that, I'm going to try to follow her steps. You can leave it empty, but that's considered bad form. You can't just delete it because behind the scenes, in some of those other files, the system may need that. It says go to the properties window of the control, click on the events button, select what you want to eliminate, and delete that name. If that confused you, let's look at it. All right, so what they're saying in English is I want to go back to this right there. Now over here, what we've seen are these are all the properties, but if I click the thing that looks like a lightning bolt, that shows me the events. And notice text change, there's something in there. I don't want that in there. So I want to highlight this, and I'm going to hit delete. And ideally, at least, hopefully, that fixed it. So let's go back and view our code again. So I can right mouse click and choose view code or hit F7, and notice that's gone. All right, so that's the way you should get rid of something that you don't want anymore. If that confused you, or if you think, wow, you did that, but you did it so fast, look at the slide. Write yourself a simple program. It doesn't have to do much of anything. This is how you're going to learn. All right? So that's what I showed you right there. So there are debates over what should you use. Should you use a GUI or should you use a console app? Okay? Console apps are smaller. They can be easier to write. They may be better, as it says, when you're learning new stuff. GUIs are neater looking, but they take longer to develop. So it's kind of a crapshoot. So what we learned in here was we created a form, this simple calculator using the Visual Studio Integrated Development Environment. We used the toolbox and we added buttons, we added labels, we added text boxes. We renamed our form. We renamed each one of our controls. We corrected any errors we had in the program. And we talked about the different interfaces that you can use. So let me look here and let me see where I am for time. I'm at 46 minutes. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this quickly or not, but I'm going to try anyway. So I'm going to do here, I'm going to do a file, save all, and then I'm going to do a file, close solution. All right, so I'm closing that. I'm going to come in here and do a file, new, project. This time I'm going to choose console app, and I'm going to call this calculator console. Okay, and there it is. All right, so my hope is, since I'm writing it from the IDE like this, I can write it pretty much the same way. It's not going to look identical, all right, but it's going to be pretty much the same way. So I'm going to say here, let's come in and say, we'll use the same ones we used before. Double number 1 equals 0. Double number 2 equals 0. Double answer equals 0. Now you might say, Jeff, why are you getting all those green things? Because I've declared variables in this console app, but I'm not using them yet. So the system is warning me. Those are not errors. Errors would be in red. These are warnings. Okay? So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say, let's see, int select, and I'm going to set that equal to 0 also. So let's put some comments in here like we did before. First number input, second number input, not third, I'm sorry. So again, that's number 1, operation, number 2, just like we did before. It's going to add, subtract, whatever. And this will be our menu selection. You'll see what that is in just a minute. I know the programs aren't identical. All right. Remember, you may remember this from before. If I say using static system.console, now I don't have to put system.console in here. I can just say, for example, I'm going to say here, write, enter first number. Oops, I don't need the console. Read line. What doesn't it like? Oh, no semicolon right there. There we go. All right. Enter second number. All right. And read line. So that'll if we run this right now, it'll allow us to enter our 2 numbers. All right. So let's see, what do we have left here? I'm a little anal about this stuff as far as lining stuff up, so you don't have to be unless that's what your teacher wants, your instructor wants. All right, so I'm going to say in here, console dot, I'm sorry, I don't need the console. I apologize for that. Let's put some \n's in here for new lines, so this will look a little nicer on the screen. All right, so that'll allow us to enter our numbers. All right, so right line, enter a 1 to add the two numbers. I don't know what I just did there. Enter a 2 to subtract number 2 from number 1. How about saying this to add number 2 to number 1. I want to have kind of the same thing in here for all these. You don't have to do that, of course, but and I didn't put semicolons at the end of all my lines, so that's why I'm getting all those errors. All right, so there's my enter 1, there's my enter number 2, enter a 3 to multiply, multiply number 1, by number 2. Again, I want to \n before all these. You'll see why when we run this. It'll look a lot cleaner, I think. I don't have to do this, and maybe I'm putting in too many blank lines, but that's okay. All right, so I've got my add, my subtract, my multiply. I want to add a 4 to divide number 1 by number 2. I want a 5 to get the remainder of number 1 divided by number 2. I want to enter a, clearing doesn't make much sense right now, so I'm going to say enter a 6 to end the program. End the program. All right, so enter a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 now. And this one I want to be a right, not a right line, because this is where I'm going to actually read that in. I think I'm going to have to probably assign these. So this will be number 1 equals read line. What does it like here? Cannot, number 1 equals system dot, what was that? That was convert dot to double. And what do I want to convert? My read line. Okay. That'll be the first one. The second one will be for number 2. All right. And now I'll have to say select equals convert dot to int 32, I think it is, read line. All right, so now I have all of my stuff in here. All right, this is kind of bad. Notice though my squigglies have gone away. It's kind of bad because I've got to write some code in here that you probably won't understand yet. All right, but I'm going to say it anyway. So if select equal 1, all right, what that means is that I said I wanted to add. So answer equals number 1 plus number 2. All right, I'm going to have to put all this in there. I'm going to pause for a second because my neighbor upstairs is showering, so it's going to be way too loud. So I'm going to pause this for a minute. All right, either that was a very short shower or she was doing something else. So if it's a 1, we do this. Else, if it's a 2, whoops, we want to subtract. Now again, remember, I'm not doing error checking in here. This is something we'll have to add in later lessons. If it's a 3, so if it's a 1, we added 2 subtract. 3, I believe, was multiply. 4 was divide. 5 was modulo. And finally, 6, I don't know if I can still say my application.exit here or not, but because that's what we want to do. Application dot, nope. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So this is where I go to my good friend Google, and I put in here how to exit a C# console application. What is the command to exit a console application? You can use, it says you can use application.exit, and it didn't like that. So I don't know if it'll take this or not, so I'm going to try that. Okay, so my comment here is going to have to be determine what number was input, and it has to be a 1 through a 6. Again, if I put in something else, the program won't know what to do. So now I've got this and I've got the answer. So the only thing that's left for me to do, to my knowledge, is to come back and now say right line the answer is, remember how we can use that placeholder? And I will say here answer dot to string. Now, the chances of me writing this program and having it work without any errors probably aren't that good, but I don't see anything that's red right now, and there's nothing in my error window. So I'm going to save, and I'm going to try to run it. Enter first number, 45. Enter second number, 34. Enter a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. I want to put another blank line there. So let's put in a 1. I didn't put another read line, so it's just going to pop right off the screen. See that? So I've got to fix that. So this will have to have a \n before it. And when I get done with the entire program after I've written it, I want to put another read line right here. So now let's try it again. All right, enter first number, 35. Enter second number, 17. All right, so we want to, let's say we want to do a 4. The answer is Okay? It's not perfect. Okay? And if we wanted to, let's see, this would take more work. Let's see. I'm going to put one more variable in here. You'll see why in a second. I'm going to put a string in here. And I'm going to call it operation. And I'm going to set it equal to the empty string. And I'm going to say it holds, and it'll hold a plus or a minus or a multiply or a divide or a modulo. All right, so if they entered a 1, the operation is a plus sign. I could have made this a character also because it's only a single character, but it's fine the way it is. We'll just leave it like this. All right, if it's a 2, it's a minus. If it's a 3, it's a multiply. If it's a 4, it's a divide. If it's a 5, it's a modulo. So why did I do this? Well, now, ooh, look at that. That should have been a 6. I didn't change that. Shame on me. All right. Otherwise, if you do put in something illegal here, I'm just going to say else. So if we put something illegal in there that we shouldn't have, all right. In fact, we won't even put if it's equal to 6. If they don't put in a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, we'll just exit. Okay. So now I can say instead of the answer is, I'm going to say this. Placeholder 0, placeholder 1, placeholder 1, placeholder 2 equals placeholder 3. Now I'm going to run out of room, so I'm going to put this all on a new line here. So I'm going to say here, so that 0, that's number 1. The next one is number 2. No, I'm sorry, the next one is operation. The next one is number 2. And then the last one is answer. I don't know if it's going to have any problems with what I'm writing in here or not. And if you say, I don't understand what you're doing, well, I'll run it and then it should make some more sense. So let's come back in again. Enter a number, 345. Enter another number, 211. All right. And let's just say we want to add them. So I'll put in a 1. So see now it says 345 plus 211 equal 556. All right. The only thing that's left to do here, there's two things left to do. All right. After we read all this stuff, I'm going to put here a couple backslash n's, and then finally, before we write this, let's put in a couple backslash n's. And I think we've just about finished the program. All right. 234, 19. Let's do a division here. So division was and I put divid there instead of divide, but a 4. So there it is. Okay? In later chapters, we'll talk about how to make this 2 decimal places, etc. But what I've done now is I've written a very, very simple calculator, and I've written it both as a GUI app and as a console app. So for the console app, everything was in main. There's our variables. I added a variable to hold my menu selection and one for my operation. All right, and I had write, where I told you to enter a first number, and I did a read line and I converted it to a double. Then I did that for the second one. Then I did it for the menu, but instead of converting it to a double, I converted it to an int. Then I used an if, and we're going to have a whole chapter on control structures later. This just says if I entered a 1, add them. If If I entered a 2, subtract them. If I entered a 3, multiply them. If I entered a 4, divide them. If I entered a 5, modulo them or give me the remainder. Otherwise, just get the heck out of the program because I entered something illegal. And put the right operation in there also. Then print everything out. The first number, the operation, the second number equals, and then the result. All right? Hopefully you got something out of this. Again, I'll try to remember to put all of this code out there also, and I'll let Evan know where all of it is. So that should finish us up with Chapter 3. Chapter 4, which we'll go over next, is on decision structures. So you've already had a little bit of an introduction into this. All right? So that will be the next lecture which I will work on, and that will be tomorrow.